Hello, everybody. My name is Andy Schmidt, and I'm here with Ryan Wilson. Thanks for joining us here today. We love having new people on, and obviously you're a new face. So, before we jump into all the big questions, do you just want to tell everybody who you are, where you're from, what you're planning on doing, and that kind of thing?
Thanks for having me. Great studio here. Thank you for inviting me in. I'm Ryan Wilson. I'm running for state auditor, and this is my first political race. I'm not a long-time political candidate.
Okay.
I'm a long-time father, CEO, and an attorney.
Nice.
And so I felt like now is the time to get into this race. We're having a lot of issues in Minnesota, especially as it relates to auditing. And when I looked around, I said, I'm the person for this job.
Yeah.
And Minnesota needs somebody that's going to be a watchdog, and never been too politically active before. But I think now is the time for Minnesota to have someone to hold government accountable.
Sure. And I mean, for you not being in politics your whole life, obviously something had to have pushed you into doing this, because I'm thinking about politics in the political atmosphere in Minnesota especially, and it's pretty hostile. So what pushed you into making this decision to run?
Well, it was really the two big things over the last 2 weeks pushed me over the edge, and I filed last Monday to run. And that was first the Southwest light rail debacle. And whether you're for or against trains, you should be for saying what the project's going to cost and spending what the project's going to cost, right? And so we're coming up on $750 million to almost $1 billion overrun on the light rail project, right? We're also, if you look at it, and again as a business owner, the idea of a sunk cost. Government's never heard of a sunk cost before, right? No, government's never heard of reevaluating a project once it started. And so I look at light rail, I see what we've, with COVID and the shift to remote learning, and I want to know if people are looking at it with that new lens, right? Is it worth spending an extra $1 billion on this project? And I get we've already put in some money for it. Or can that money be used for other things, for education, right? For roads, for whatever the project might be. We only have a fixed sum of dollars. And I think we shouldn't be afraid to ask, is this project still the right thing? Are people still going to be, over the next 5-10 years commuting into the cities at the rate that they did in the past? So that was kind of project number one, and just the gross mismanagement of it. And then the second thing that kind of pushed me to get in the race was this Feeding Our Future scandal. And now that isn't directly under the state auditor's office, that purview, but it exemplifies the type of fraud that's out there. And when you have auditors that don't audit, that don't look, this is the type of stuff that festers. And I talk about how I want to run as really a nonpartisan, right? Because things like accountability isn't partisan, and transparency isn't partisan, math isn't partisan. And so people say, so how can the office be partisan now? And the way that it's partisan now, and the current state auditor will proudly say that it should be a partisan progressive office, is that it's where you don't look, right? It's where you turn a blind eye to. And so when you don't audit something, or when you know that you're not going to be audited and you're getting a free pass, that's when you get opportunities for some of this corruption. And so this pushed me in, and I've got 5 kids. I care about the future of Minnesota. I care about guarding our fiscal, our public fisc, and ensuring that we're solid for generations to come. And I'm just seeing it not happening in the current state auditor's office. And so I think I can, my background as a CEO, my MBA, and as an attorney, knowing how to ask the right questions, I think I can get in there and really turn the office around and restore some of those watchdog priorities that have kind of gone to the wayside over really the last 12 years. I mean, the Democrats have controlled the office for the last 12 years.
A long time, Well, and what specific ways are you planning on stopping this fraudulent behavior? Because I think, thinking about this myself, it feels a lot of times like these politicians, more so on the left, but sometimes on the right as well, almost feel that they're above the law. They don't have to abide by the laws like the citizens do, and they throw money around like it's no big deal, and they take money that's not theirs. So it feels like there's scandal after scandal across the country and in Minnesota, and it feels like, not a lot has been done about it. So it's a broad question, but what do you think is?
As an attorney, I get calls all the time, especially an attorney that has sued the government on multiple occasions. And one, as an attorney, people come and say, can I sue over this? Somebody's doing this. Like,
Right.
it's not right. I want to be able to sue over it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, there's no what's called a cause of action. There's no way to get into court to hold government accountable. And
Sure.
so a lot of our laws are predicated on the idea that people will just be good actors. They'll follow the laws. They'll do the things that they're supposed to, right? You
Yeah.
put in a data practices request. The law says they're supposed to comply with the data practices request, right? So, and so the laws are built kind of on that assumption.
Sure.
As an auditor, what I can do, and what's not being done today, is I can shine a light on how government works. And so I can go and I can look at, are they complying with legal requirements? Are they complying with financial requirements? Right? I can audit the counties and say, how many people aren't showing up for work, right? How many people are working remote but
Right.
never logging in?
Yeah.
How are schools spending their CARES money? Are they spending it to keep kids in school on coronavirus-related items, or are they spending it on their pet projects, right? And then still going to remote learning, right? And so, as auditor, I don't have the ability to bring lawsuits or to prosecute like the AG would, or to pass legislation like the legislature would. But none of those other bodies can do their jobs without knowing where the problem is. And so as auditor, I'm going to go in and I'm going to root out these things. I'm going to find them, and I'll go wherever the money goes. Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. We need, you shine a light on it, and people can make a decision for themselves. Is that government working for me, or is that government working for somebody else?
Sure. Well, the current auditor, Julie Blaha is her name, right? You told me that before we did this, and I was like, wow, that's an interesting last name. But so I guess, what do you think are some of the weaknesses, her weaknesses? Because, and what are some of your strengths that could contrast that?
One of the...
I guess what makes you the better candidate? Yeah, that's a better question.
Well, first the experience. So I'm the more experienced candidate of the two for this position. Julie spent most of her career, she was a middle school teacher for a while in Noka-Hennepin, and then she was the Noka-Hennepin union president. And so she spent most of her life being a union president, and a significant portion of her time as a DFL activist. She's very involved in party politics, recruiting candidates, co-campaigning with candidates, and so the experience of the auditing, the management, running an organization, and setting priorities isn't there. So contrast that with myself. I'm an MBA, former CEO. I ran a company responsible for monitoring and auditing clinical trials. So companies want to get FDA approval, they'd come to my company, we'd help collect all the data, and then we'd go audit it, make sure that it's accurate. The stakes of our audits is if we got it wrong, people might die.
Yeah.
Or the wrong kind of medicine might get approved.
Sure.
And so I have lots of experience in the auditing field and understanding what it means to root out and really dig and find what might be hidden, right?
Yeah.
But also as an attorney, I know how to ask the right questions and also get the right answers.
Sure.
And one of the examples of that is this litigation I was involved with. I was one of the attorneys for the Let Them Play litigation.
Okay.
That was a group of parents that were frustrated that their kids were being forced to wear masks during sports. And so this isn't about the broader, there's a big debate on masks in general. Right?
Yeah.
This was narrow on whether during the act of playing hockey, for example,
Sure.
or of a gymnast on a mat by herself, does that person need to wear a mask?
Yeah.
And lots of science out there saying that it doesn't. That is not the time that it's needed. That's not how coronavirus is spread between kids.
Right.
And we sued the government over that.
Yeah.
And we said this isn't right. The science doesn't back you up.
Yeah.
And what we found by digging through various discovery methods and data practice requests is a series of emails that showed that what the governor wanted to do was tie long-term care deaths to youth sports to be able to justify his lockdowns.
Yeah.
And we never would have uncovered that if we didn't know how to ask the right questions and to keep digging. So I'll bring that experience to the auditor's office.
Yeah, and so for people who obviously want to know more about you and what you believe in, this is a shorter interview, but where can people go to find more about you?
So the website, wilson4mn.com.
Okay.
Or any iteration, Wilson for Minnesota. It all directs the same same spot. And then from there, you can get links to our Twitter, our Facebook. You can make a donation. You can sign up to volunteer. And so wilson4mn.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this. Appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll have you on again at some point. But yeah, thanks so much for coming on.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.